Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
Let me get my video. There we go.
Hi,
Hi there.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, Susan. I'm so thankful you're here with me.
Thank you for having me.
Will you join me in a guided meditation so we can ground ourselves in our breath?
Sure.
And for the listeners, as you always hear my spiel, I want you to stay safe and everybody around you. So if you're needing to drive or run or do anything that needs your visual, please don't close your eyes. Yet the other prompts you're able to do with whatever activity you're doing. So Susan, I'll ask you to get comfortable in your seat and you're going to gently close your eyes. And you're going to begin breathing in and out through your nose. And you're going to bring your awareness to watching your breath go in and out through your nose. Don't try to control your breath. Just bring your awareness to watching your breath and being aware of the rhythm. There may be some feelings or sensations coming up in the body. Don't push them away. Let them come up. You're safe to feel. You're safe to let go. Surrender the need to control. Release the need to resist and just be. Be with your breath. Drop into your body. Stay with your breath. There may be some thoughts or memories popping up. That's fine. Don't push them away. Just bring your awareness back to watching your breath go in and out. Continue staying with your breath. Continue staying with your breath. Now, at your own time and at your own pace, you're going to gently open your eyes while still staying with your breath.
I got to tell you something funny. So, my dad is in this room right now. um, my copier just turned on all by itself. And the minute I actually visualized him. So he came into my mind as we were doing that exercise. And then my copier turned itself. So he's got a little bit of a quirky way of telling me that he's around when I do these podcasts.
Beautiful. I love that you have the opening and you're able to communicate on the other side of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that you can bring his energy and his presence in here. So I'm
Yeah.
delighted to have him here with us.
Well, he's the reason why I am doing this. So,
Um, I did a podcast with another person, and her mother transitioned in 2021. And while we were speaking, her front door just opened on its own. And she's like, this has never happened. I'm like,
mhm.
I tend to also, once the nervous system is regulated and if you're open for the presence,
Mm-hmm.
these things come
Uh-huh.
in. I know some people think it's woo woo or you might not understand it, yet those that understand the language, it's like, oh, you're welcomed. And uh, it's nice to be in spaces where we can talk like this openly and not have to worry about anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, I've always had that, I've always had that intuition, you know, um, I actually bring people like that towards me. And and so that's why I can laugh when things like this happen because it's happened before. I I was on another it wasn't a podcast, it was a conference that I was speaking at, and the speaker prior to me was a breath work. She did breath work and intuitive breath work, and the same exact thing happened. My copier in my office just turned on all by itself. I was like, huh, okay. And then I was speaking. It was right before I went on. And I just took it like it really filled my heart because I knew that it was like reinforcement for me to know that what I was doing and speaking of, he approved of it, and he was excited. Um, and so I just felt that, and it relaxed me enough to like do my talk. And I just this morning I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Every podcast is different, and I've been on a lot of them. And so, like I said before, I just let whatever happen.
Yeah. I delve into the nervous system. So I call it energy healing because our nervous
Mhm.
system, energy and frequency.
Mhm.
And my space allows people's nervous systems to regulate and feel a sense of calm and that they can come into their body because our bodies are the conduit, like a radio, to, transmit the frequency.
Right.
What is your father's name?
Tom.
Thank you, Tom, for being here. Now, we got ahead of ourselves because Tom wanted to do a grand entrance. So
Right.
we're going to explain who Tom is and give the backstory and, honor his legacy and honor your legacy that you're walking in right now.
Absolutely. Well, my dad was a Los Angeles police detective, and in 1985, he was testifying on Halloween of 1985. He was testifying that day on his case. And after work, he went to go pick up my brother from school. And the guy that was involved um, was out on bail during his trial. So he laid in wait and drove by. And my dad knew what was happening, what was coming, as he was putting my brother, who was 6 at the time, in the car. And he turned around and he told my brother to duck down in the truck. He knew what was coming. And he was killed instantly. Um, but he saved my brother's life in his last moments. That night, I was 17 at the time, and I was getting ready to go to a party, hopefully. Dad had said no that morning, but I knew he was going to change his mind. So I was home getting ready, and my mom had come home from work, and she was taking her costume off, and the phone rang. And so, being a teenager, I thought, who's calling my parents? It's got to be for me, right? So I sprinted across the hallway into our den, picked up the phone, and there was a lady on the other side who identified herself from my brother's school. And all she said was that there was a drive-by shooting and my dad was involved and nothing else. At that point, I gave the phone to my mom immediately. And as I stood there, I was watching my mom's like demeanor, her posture, everything. And I could tell that it was bad. She got off the phone. She looked at me and said, "We're going to the school." And we did. We didn't talk the whole way there. And it was about 10 minutes. We went, we parked. And the way that the school is set up is the kids get picked up from the back side of the school for after school care. And so we parked in the middle of the school. There's parking in the middle of the school. And we headed towards the back of the school. And at that point, I saw police officers walking around and they had tears in their eyes. And I saw an ambulance and the lights were blaring, but it was just sitting there. When we rounded a corner, we saw my dad's truck and both of us started to walk towards the truck. And that's when we witnessed, there was glass everywhere, and we witnessed his body, and it had been covered up, but it was still in the same place that he fell. At that point, I could hear my mom screaming, and I saw her, drop to her knees, and police officers were holding her back. And I just stood there, like, not understanding what I was seeing. Like, my brain was just like, I had two different, it's like it split in half. Like, part of me was seeing what I was seeing, but the other part of me was looking at the ambulance and wondering why no one was helping him. And so we were escorted away, obviously, and went to an office. And at that point, I was just really trying to wrap my head around what was happening. And we got to the office and my mom got pulled aside. I had no idea where my brother was at the time. I didn't know if he was hurt. I didn't know what he saw, nothing. And I was sitting in the chair in this office by myself. And I could hear two ladies that were working in the office talking. And the one lady said that Mr. Williams, Detective Williams, was gone, that he was deceased. And that's when it hit me, and I just wanted to run out of there. Like, I wanted to run and run and run. But at that point, my nervous system shut down. My body totally shut down on me. I couldn't move from that chair. And still wondering where my brother was, still, really confused. Mm-hmm. And my mom came to me and she said, "I'm sending you with a neighbor." And I was like, wait, I need my mom. Like, part of me was like, I need my mom. I don't want to go to the neighbor's house. Like, I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to go to the neighbor's house. I didn't, and I did it, I did what she said. And so I had to like navigate all of this stuff as a kid myself, like trying to figure out, like, how do I get through this? How can I live without him? He was like my best friend. My dad was a very present person when he was here. He was my safety net. He always made me feel safe. And now I don't even have that, And my street where I lived became something that it's hard to even describe, because it used to be a very quiet neighborhood. And now it's like filled with police officers everywhere, everywhere. There were cop cars up and down the street, and then you could hear the helicopters overhead. Well, we didn't know, but we were in danger and we didn't know that. But that's why we had so much presence. And my poor neighbor lady, she just like I was I was a wreck. I was inconsolable. I didn't know how I was going to deal with things, and to make things a little bit more complicated, my mom and I had a very complicated relationship at the time. Very, very complicated. And I wasn't sure. He was always the go-between, the voice of reason. And now he's gone. And I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this. I was very blessed, very, very blessed to have had a boyfriend at that time. We'd been dating 3 months, still kind of iffy, like he was 19 and I had just turned 17 2 days before this. And I begged the neighbor lady. I was like, he was what I needed. And she called him, but she didn't tell him anything. She didn't give him any information. So when he showed up, all he knew was that my dad was in this incident. And, he was standing at the door saying, get your purse and your jacket and I'll take you to the hospital. What hospital is he at? Where's your mom? Where's your brother? What hospital? And I couldn't spit it out. I couldn't tell him. And this was at least, a minute where I just couldn't. If I said it, it was real. I just couldn't. And finally, I just blurted it out. He's gone. And it was the first time I'd ever seen, like, he's now my husband, by the way. But he dropped to his knees. It was devastating to him. We were both kids and we had no idea how to navigate this. We had no idea. We had no tools. We had no, this was the 80s.
Yeah.
There was no talk about mental health.
No.
There was no talk about PTSD. There were no resources. Hi, Dad. He's reminding me.
Yeah.
There was nothing. There was no resources for me. No phone calls, no phone numbers to call, none of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to deal with this on my own. It was crazy. It was, I just felt like my whole world shattered. And I didn't know how I was going to live without him. And my poor husband, boyfriend back then, he was like, I don't know what to do either. Like, but he chose to stay with me. Most guys at 19 would have said, bye-bye, this is too much. There is no way. And he didn't. He stuck it out. And I think, when we talk about it now, after my book came out, especially, he and I had many conversations around this, and he said, something in me told me that I needed to stick with you because you needed a friend at this time. And your mom, I knew your mom was going to kind of do her own thing. And she did. She kind of turtled. And I'm not, I don't blame her, right? Because especially that night, like, there was so much chaos that night at the school. And I've asked her, why did you send me away? And she really can't answer it. She just said, maybe I was trying to protect you, but I felt like it was an abandonment,
Of course.
And
It was.
yeah, and that's how I felt. I felt abandoned. And then after everything happened, it even took the media 2 days to figure out he had a teenage daughter. And it's because all the focus was obviously on my brother and my mother and my father. But it started this mindset for me that I wasn't important.
Mm.
I wasn't important enough for my mother to give me the support that I needed, the nurturing I needed, just the feeling that I'm not alone on this island. And, I had my family. My brother was too little, right? He was just a little guy. But I couldn't even be like the big sister to him because I had nothing left. I was completely depleted. I was trying to navigate all of these emotions, which I now know are part of PTSD, with severe depression and anxiety. I had panic attacks where I literally thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was fine with that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a lot of pain inside.
yeah. And, and I really struggled with verbalizing, but I was also a kid.
Mhm.
And I'm a Gen X. So we don't talk about our feelings back then, especially as a kid. Um, but it was just really hard because I just wanted so much for someone to step up for me and like tell me it was going to be okay. Like I didn't hear any of that. And that was hard.
Mhm.
I had to go through all the emotions, all the pomp and circumstance of the funeral, and it was all over the news every single night. And we had media camped out, by the house all the time. They didn't catch the people involved for 6 days. And so we had that police presence for 6 days.
Mhm.
If I went anywhere, I had bodyguards. I mean, this was not a life that I would wish on anyone, you know? It's not a celebrity that I would wish on anyone, right?
Mm.
And it took about a month after everything was, the funeral was done and all that. LAPD came to my mom and they said, we want to pay for a therapist for each one of you. And I didn't know what therapy was. At the time, I was like, well, if you need therapy, you're crazy, because that's what kids think, right? We didn't know. Um, And so but at the time, it's just whatever someone told me to do, I did it.
Mhm.
They just put me in the direction I needed to go, and I went. And so when my mom said, I'm sending you to therapy, you know, I went. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is the adult, right? Maybe this is the adult that's going to help me feel better and not feel the way I presently do. And I met with this gentleman for an entire year. And I tell people this all the time and they go, what? But not one time in that entire year did he ask me how that night affected me. Not once. He didn't dive in. He didn't ask me questions. I'm 17. I don't know how to verbalize it. And our sessions were they were very shallow. They were very, general. It was, my relationship with my mother, my brother, my boyfriend, and school. That's it. Every time I went, I was like, today's the day. Today's the day. But it didn't happen. And after a year, he looked at me and said I was a well-rounded young lady and that I was going to be fine for the rest of my life. And I didn't need to see him anymore. And at that point, I just was like, I was resolved to the fact that this is just the way I was going to have to live for the rest of my life. And I'm just going to have to figure it out. And I have cracked. I'm crazy. And there's not even a professional can help me. And that was the mindset that I had. And it took a lot away from me because, not having the tools, not being able to verbalize and communicate what was going on, it caused me to, I struggled with seeing things for what they were, you know, relationships for what they were, friendships for what they were. I mean, everything. And, I don't blame him. I feel like maybe he wasn't educated enough to handle the amount of trauma. And he was probably afraid to ask the questions because he didn't want to get himself into a situation where he didn't know what to do. So in hindsight and looking at it, that's probably the issue. But, 14 years I dealt with that. 14 years of being off and on, with anxiety, with depression, with suicidal ideation, and sometimes very severe, and I don't know how I got through it, honestly.
Your own hellhole. Your own hellhole.
Yeah, I really don't know how I didn't end it.
Mhm.
I really don't know how I didn't, other than the fact that, maybe my dad was just like, oh, no, you don't. But, 14 years later, I married that boyfriend. I'm now a mom of 2 kids. We have moved from Southern California to Colorado, and we were here 2 years. I was working as a hairdresser at the time. And October 19th of 1999, the Columbine shootings happened at Columbine High School. And I was at work and I had taken a break, went into the back room, turned on our little TV set, and all of the news was on about what was currently happening at the school. And I had a visceral reaction.
Oh, yeah. Flashback, totally. You
I
notice it.
had flashbacks. I had anxiety, panic attack. My anxiety was through the roof. I turned bright white, and none of my coworkers knew my story, so they had no idea what was happening to me, nor did I. Remember, I was told 14 years ago that I was going to be fine for the rest of my life, so I had no idea what was happening.
Mhm.
And what I got really good at for years and years and years, and I talk about this all the time, was I would put my emotional mask on. And that mask was everything that people would tell me throughout the years of, oh, you're so strong. It's amazing what, you're just so strong. You're so strong. And that was my emotional mask. I'm so strong. This isn't going to affect me. I'm totally fine, and so I did that again. I put that mask on. I finished my clients for the rest of the day, pretended like nothing happened. Everybody around me was upset, and having reactions to what was happening at Columbine. But sorry.
Okay. Take your time.
I just kept telling myself, I'm going to be fine. You know, I'm fine. And I walked out the door and I wasn't fine because all of those things came flooding back.
Yeah.
All of the suicidal ideation, all of that, I felt like I was spiraling. But now I'm a mom. And I just, I struggled for at least 2 or 3 days. And I would have, pretty strong visualizations of like driving off the road in my car. I mean, and thank God my husband is who he is, because he stopped me at the door one day and said, "You have two choices." Because he saw it. He knew I was spiraling and it was a slippery slope. And he said, "You have two choices. You either get help today or I'm putting you in a hospital." And I said, "Okay, I'll go see a doctor. I'll get help. I promise. I don't want to leave you and the kids. Like I understand, And so I went to the doctor, and the regular doctor, and he said, "I'm going to prescribe you antidepressants," and because that's what they do. And he said, "And then you're going to have to seek a therapist." And I laughed in his face. And he was like, "Why are you laughing?" And I said, "Because this 14 years ago, I saw a therapist and he couldn't fix me then. What makes you think that a new one will?" And he said, "Well, that's the chance you got to take. Like you're going to have to do this if you want to get better." And I said, "Okay." So he gave me a reference, and I am so grateful to this day because the woman that I did meet with within the first 5 minutes of our meeting, she specialized in PTSD and severe trauma. And I told her a snippet of what I went through at 17 and then what I was currently dealing with. And she looked at me and she said, "Susan, everything that you have gone through and experienced since you were 17 is normal because you have PTSD." And I kind of sat back in the chair and I was like, "What? I didn't go to war. I'm not in the military." And she said, "You know what? Anyone who experiences trauma can have PTSD. But what you need to understand is that PTSD isn't something that goes away. You learn to manage it." And I was like, I describe it as the sky opened up and rainbows shot out because I finally knew I wasn't crazy. And I knew that this woman got it and that she was going to be able to guide me and give me the tools to heal. And I finally had hope. And it just, I was just so grateful. And I cried that day because I thought, "Oh my gosh, finally I had the adult that was going to help me." Even now, that I'm an adult, I still didn't have the tools. So I was so grateful for that moment, you know, and she started me out, baby steps because there was so much going on. We had to tackle it one thing at a time. So that's what we did.
That's the work that I do. You see, rather than doing the onion peel, I'm able to bring you right into your nervous system and feel the feelings that you weren't given the space to feel at the moment of the experience. And you described it very well of how the defense mechanisms start to create this identity and this sense of protection, and the negative bias gets so loud that it's trying to avoid feeling these deep sense of grief and sadness and fear and rage and anger. And so when it's trying to come up to give you the messages, it's pushing down. And what is the signaling in your head? Just end it. Just I'm the problem. So let me just end my life. So there's no more of
Yep.
this conflict going on
Yep.
inside.
Yep.
How did you start interacting with your emotions?
So the first thing, because I was not sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
um, and sleep deprivation is horrific when you're dealing with anxiety and depression. So the first thing she wanted to do is tackle my sleep,
Mm-hmm.
but getting me to a point in my mind where I was able to sleep. So part of my problem, and I talk to a lot of people about this, is when your body gets to rest, that's when your brain kicks in, right? So what would happen is all the bad stuff, all the dark stuff, all the things would come into my brain at night. And then it would terrify me to the point where I didn't want to shut my eyes. So, what she started me with was something that I talk to people about. And some people are like, oh, that's so frou frou and whatever. But journaling is what she started me with. And she gave me a couple of prompts. Um, and she said, look, journaling can be done in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You could write, you could do art, or you could do music, whatever it is that gets whatever it is out of your head out. So for me, it was writing. And I thought, oh gosh, all right, kind of rolling my eyes. But I said, okay, I will give this a week, you know. And so every night, and she said, you do it right before you go to bed. Some people journal in the morning. I do it before I go to bed. And she said, whatever is in your head, you just put it all on the paper and then go to sleep. And I said, okay. So I did it for an entire week and I slept. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, how can this, like, really? Um, and so that was the first modality. That was the first thing that we did to get through the anxiety of going to sleep. And then we started moving into more talk therapy. Then she introduced me to tapping. So I did some tapping, breath work, just to stabilize myself and ground myself, and kind of like what you were doing. And so it was just like a little by little by little, and then she pushed me, and now she didn't do EMDR, but she sent me to someone that did do EMDR. And so I did some sessions of EMDR, and that was eye-opening. And that actually opened my intuitiveness intensely.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to be at the point where I was ready to do things like that, because EMDR is very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Going back there, reliving,
Mm-hmm.
is very scary, but it was mind-blowing how significant it helped for me to move through a lot of my pain
Mm-hmm.
that I had been carrying around all these years. So I was very grateful, for that. But I will tell you, the biggest thing I ever did, and I waited, and people ask me, like, why did you wait till you were 50 years old to write a book? Well, that's because I had to be in a place where I knew I was safe enough that telling my story and reliving everything and feeling everything, that I had the tools in order to do that. And at 50, I did. And I felt like my dad was like, get this thing done, because I knew that not only did I know that this would heal me, I was really hoping that it would heal my husband, because he too went through trauma. He may not have seen what I saw, but from that night on, when he knew, it was very traumatic for him as a young man. And we never dealt with it. We never, I had lived in fight or flight for so many years and trying to figure out how to heal myself. I didn't know how to heal him too. And so I felt like maybe with this book and him reading and really diving into my brain, my experiences, that maybe in some way he could heal himself as well. And even my brother, my brother's 10 years younger than me. And, as I was writing it, though, all these fears came up. And part of that was, the fear, obviously, of my safety. There were many men involved in my dad's murder. It was planned out for months. And so I had safety fears for sure, putting myself out there. The second one was I going to blow up my relationship with my own husband? And my third was I going to blow up my relationship with my mother? The remainder of our relationship. But I really weighed out. What I did was I found purpose, and my purpose was all those faces out there that needed to hear this, that needed to hear my message, that needed to have hope in their healing. And they could see my resiliency, and that would give them hope that one day they could feel it themselves and build it within themselves. So anytime I had those fears, that's what I have a tagline, bulldoze your fear, because I really did. I had to bulldoze through all those feelings in order to continue to keep going, to keep doing it. And the other thing is I had to be okay with the outcome. So I had to really look at it and say, if this does blow up my relationship with my husband, I have to live with that. If it blows up my relationship with my mom, I have to live with that. And I didn't care about the men that were out there. It was important for me for the first time in my life to tell my story because everybody else had been telling their version of my story. And I thought it was really important. The other people that I wanted to heal were the people in the law enforcement community. And the reason is because even now, 39 years later, there's still so much hurt and pain and sadness and anger around my dad's death. And so I thought if I could show those people, especially the men and the women that knew him, that worked with him, that trained with him, if they could see my resiliency, then maybe it would find some hope and healing for them as well. And it would remind them that their own mental health is important. And I compartmentalized. I used the emotional mask. I did all the things that they do on a daily basis in their job. And the problem is that obviously when you live with that for too long, it obviously will come back and bite you eventually. So, I go out and I speak to law enforcement and remind them that you can't live like that forever. And that's why alcoholism and divorce is high in that job. And but anyone can read my book and either see themselves or be able to connect with what I was saying in some sort of way. And that was my purpose. That's my purpose, is to be able to really bring home the fact that you have to do the work. You have to do the work, and it's not easy. It's not easy to relive and refill and all of that. But what I tell people now is that when you do that, when you do the work like that, you are gaining your power back. Because a lot of times when you go through something that traumatic or a trauma of some sort, when you are sitting in your sadness and when you are sitting in your anger and when you are sitting in all of that, you're giving up your power to that person, to that thing, to that whatever. And so I tell people, if you want to take your power back, heal yourself. Heal yourself. You need to be the priority. And, so I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I've talked to people who are, trying to get sober. And, and I tell people all the time, like, if you don't work within your internal things, whatever it is that you're hurting, whatever trauma you've gone through, even sobriety is harder, you know. So, and I dealt with that. My mom, she started drinking after my dad was killed. My mom has a narcissistic personality, and I realized this at 54. I'm 55, but it took me all these years to realize that all of this behavior, all of these things, it was how she's wired. It's just who she is. And after I did write the book, I did sit down with her, and my dad gave me some instructions through an intuitive, and I I listened to his instructions, and I went and I sat down and I had a conversation with her, and I told her everything that I spoke about in the book. And I told her there are going to be things in there that are going to be hard for you to read. And, here are all the things I talk about. I talk about her drinking and how it affected me. I talk about the abandonment issues. I talk about generational abuse.
Mhm.
And how I chose as a mom to change that behavior and change that legacy. And I thought that the conversation went pretty well. But when the book came out, I delivered hers. She set it down with her mail and ignored it for a little while. And I left. And she called me about 40 minutes later and said, I read the first 2 chapters of your book, and it's written very well. I'm proud of you. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Thank you. And then she argued with me with which neighbor I went with. And I didn't engage, I was like, whatever. But after that, I never heard from her. And she stopped talking to me. And she ended the relationship. And, I thought, at first I was like, what do I do to heal this? But then I had to really think about it, because I've tried for years to heal that relationship in my, in a way that a kid could try to heal a parent. And it wasn't happening. And so I had this fantasy that one day my mom was going to wake up and she was going to be that Hallmark movie mom. And it didn't happen. And, I thought, oh, when I do this, she's going to be so proud of me and she's going to love me more. Oh, if I do this, she's going to love me more. Oh, I'm going to write this book and she's maybe it'll open a conversation, is what I was really hoping would happen.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I had to do is I had to find peace in that. And I had to realize that I couldn't stay in a toxic relationship, even with a parent. And I had to let go of that fantasy because it was never going to happen. And I needed to be peaceful in where I am and continue to talk uh, and tell my message and get it out there and not worry about how it affects her anymore and not take responsibility for her reactions. And I got to tell you, it is a freeing, powerful, peaceful place to be. And I know my dad understands where I'm coming from. And so I'm at peace with that. And, and so that's the healing piece that I'm dealing with currently is I didn't realize that I was in that type of relationship all these years. I had no idea that that was abusive. And so, because I spent so many years making excuses for the behavior, and now it's like, oh, well, she's old, she's older and, she's going to be grumpy or she's going to do this. No, no, she's always been this way. And so it's just another part of the resiliency is being able to level up, being able to like leave that toxic relationship and know who I am, and who I want to be and who I strive to be and who I'm growing to be. And that's what I want for other people, you know, that's what I want for other people that are going through whatever they're going through, whether it's loss, whether it's trauma, and being able to give them hope, being able to show them resiliency and what it looks like. And yeah, you can go through some really terrible things and very, I talk about it in one of my talks about turbulence, uh, but knowing that above the turbulence is blue skies, right? And you have to go through the turbulence to get to the blue skies.
Yeah.
So
To give some more verbiage to what you described is you really started setting boundaries for yourself, recognizing the work that your mother had to do for herself was not your responsibility.
right.
Do you recognize that your mother has trauma?
Absolutely.
And so interacting in that and not realizing that you had the verbiage and all you have been doing is trying to find safety.
Yes.
What we do as a child is we look for safety in our parents are supposed to be our safety.
Yes.
And they haven't done their inner work. Boy, it becomes a whole confusing space. And like you said, the relationship between you and your mom was very challenging, yet you had safety in your father.
Yes.
And now that that safety was gone, and then you don't have your mom, and then I loved how you explained how you weren't able to sleep because rest didn't feel safe.
Right.
Because
Yep.
you were 2 days after your birthday, so 17, you're excited. You're about to go to a party, convince your dad that everything
Mhm.
else,
Yep.
that excitement and that peace got ruptured into unsafe.
Yep.
So to come back into your body, to come back into excitement and joy, that was a threat.
Yep.
So all
Yeah.
you've been doing is the journey to come back into your body and trust your body and face the pain, which
Yeah.
no gave you the space to face the pain.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not something that happens overnight.
No.
And I think people need to understand that. Like, first of all, the one key thing I could say is that I found someone, a therapist that specialized in my type of trauma. And the first 5 minutes of meeting with her, I felt like I could be vulnerable with this woman. I felt safe. You're absolutely right. I felt safe with her, right? So when I hear people say, "Oh my gosh, I tried therapy and it didn't work," my first question is, "Why do you think it didn't work?" And they'll say things like, "Well, because all I did was just sit there and talk." Um, and I didn't know what to talk about most of the time. Or I would lie to her because I just wanted to use up the time or whatever it was, right? Her, him, whatever. And I ask them, did you feel like you were comfortable enough to be vulnerable with this person? And they say no. And I said, then at that point, you have the right, because remember, this is your healing. It's not their healing, it's yours. So you have the right to get up and find another therapist because it might take you two or three, right? To find the right fit, to find the person that you can be vulnerable with, that you know and trust that is going to be able to guide you in your healing.
Mhm.
And if you don't have that, move on. And it's okay.
Mhm.
Because remember, it's your healing, it's your life. And it's important, right? You need to be the priority. And so that's a message that I continue to have conversations with people who have said to me, oh my gosh, like therapy didn't work with me. And I say, well, why? Why didn't it work for you? Or what were you looking for? Like, was that a question that your therapist asked you? What are you looking at for out of this therapy? Right? Just like coaching, I coach. So in my coaching, I say, what are you looking for in this coaching? Because it gives me clarification about where we're going to go from there, right? But if you have a therapist that's not even asking that question, then how are they supposed to know where to take you, for one?
Yeah.
Right. So, that's the other part of my education for people out of my own experience is making sure that you're with someone who you can be vulnerable with and that they're going to be able to continue to guide you in the way that you need in order to heal.
Like how I break it down for people because of I understand therapy peels the onion, yet my work brings you into the core. And so safety, nervous system, I don't know why this does this all the time. Safety. um, your nervous system needs safety. It will not open the door of disarming the defense mechanisms for you to get to that vulnerability. So if you
Yep.
don't have safety, you could try all you want. Vulnerability is not going to come out because your biology is trying to protect you because it's
Yep.
always protection. And so then for healing, you need radical honesty. You have to be
Absolutely.
able to tell your truth, like you said, that radical honesty. And not when the radical honesty comes, there's going to be feeling. You're going to feel some emotions that you've never allowed yourself to feel before. And what
Right.
happens when there's feeling? You usually disassociate and jump out of the body.
Yep.
Yet you need those three things to still rewire your nervous system that it's safe to be in this body. Because what you're creating is safety within your own nervous system that
Hmm.
you didn't have the tools or skills to do. So when you're born, you hook into the nervous system of your caregivers. And what is
Right.
supposed to be happening is that they show you that you have the capacity to be in your body and to be safe. Yet
Right.
a lot of people don't have, like you said, I didn't have the verbiage. I couldn't understand. Yet when you had that revelation of epiphany, that's why your intuition came, because it's like, wait, I can start trusting myself.
Yep.
I've been beating myself up of this confusion and fragmenting myself out, where it's like, no, I've been seeing certain things in a clear way, yet nobody gave me the validation of, wait, this is all serving me. Like, yeah, I'm having to process some shit for this garden with the manure. Yet, okay, what is this safety I need to create? And when this confusion comes up, it brings
Hmm.
back to that incident of seeing the ambulance, seeing all this. So it immobilizes you. You were in
Yep.
the frozen state of your nervous system. And to come out of that, it's like, okay, we can go a little bit more, and see the scene and allow curiosity to give us some verbiage of it and
Yep.
not just be stuck without feeling. Because you
Exactly.
disassociated. You had to. It
Right.
was moving for your whole
Yep.
system. And what
Yep.
that therapist was supposed to do, that gentleman, that he wasn't I understand that there's this saying of trauma informed. It's actually trauma competent. It's
Right.
really understanding the nervous system.
Understanding it. Yep.
Do you,
Absolutely.
do you understand the language I'm saying? Does it make sense internally?
Yep.
And it sounds very
100%.
simple, yet it's a process to get in
It
here.
is.
And my nervous system, because of the work I've done with lived experience, that
Mm-hmm.
my nervous system provides a sacred space of safety. So people can be this radical honesty, and then they can feel these feelings. And it's like, oh, I didn't need a pill to kind of numb to feel these. I'm feeling it. And then these clicks happen. Like you said, that revelation, the sky opened up, and it's like, shit, I can see from the inside out now, not
Yeah,
from the outside in.
exactly. And you know that the here's the other really incredible part of this is it's something that happens all the time. When you are living your purpose, it shows up all the time. So for me, when I have conversations with people, um, and I'm able to tell my truth, I'm able to tell my story, what always happens is the guard is let down from that other person and they start telling me their story.
Mhm.
And I think because I allow people to have a safe space to feel like I'm not judging, I am there to be present. And when I think about this, I thought, oh my God, like when I say I'm my father's daughter, I am my father's daughter because he was the exact same way. You know, he would give you when you were with him, he was present. He always made you feel like you were the most important person in the room, right? And I'm working to be the same way, right? To be absolutely 100% present. But when I'm able to tell my story, um, I give people a safe space. And I'm proud of that. Like I feel really good about that. And I feel like that's when I'm able to touch people in a way. And we live in a crazy world right now that's, very it's very entitled, it's very, hurtful, it's very, people are afraid to say what's on their mind. And I think that's bull.
Mhm.
I think, I think people should be able to be who they are innately. And so when I talk to people, even talking about my mom and my experiences with my mom, it's amazing how many people I come across in that conversation who are like, oh my God, I grew up with a parent like that. Oh my
Mhm.
God. I never thought about that. I never thought about my own peace. I never thought about, what it would look like to have no contact, right? Is that a route that I need to look at? You know what I mean? And so it's just been a very, I'm always learning, ever since the book came out, it's opened up so many different conversations with people. I had a woman, for example, I had a woman that read the book and she sent me a message. I'm a realtor by trade right now too. And I kind of have a lot of different things that I do. Um, but I've been a realtor for many years and she is also a realtor out of state and she lost her husband to COVID very, very quickly and was struggling. And so I sent her my book as a gift. And I told her, I hope this helps you to heal, helps you find hope. And she sent me a message after she read it. And she said, you know what, Susan, I was your mom. And thank you for opening my eyes to that.
Mhm.
And, I want to make sure that I'm not continuing in that behavior. And, you know, I, now that I saw how it affected you, I realized how it affected my daughter. And, and I told her, I said, well, first of all, you're not my mom because you've recognized that this was your behavior and you've recognized that it affected your daughter. So you're not my mom. Second of all, I'm so proud of you for being able to take that responsibility, to be that vulnerable, and to go get the help that you need, right? To make sure that you're healing. And it was just a different, I didn't even think about that. Like I didn't even think that someone would connect with it in that way.
But that's a repair you needed.
Yeah. And it was I was just like, wow, that's incredible,
Yeah,
you know. So I was very grateful for
of
that.
course. Of
Very
course.
grateful. Um and just, how much love and appreciation my book has brought to people has blown my mind.
Yeah.
But it verifies to me that I'm on the right path, that what I did and what I'm doing is what I should be doing. Like this is my purpose, is helping other people. I feel like we're all given things in life,
Mhm.
be it not so great, right?
Mhm.
And tragic and everything, but when we're able to rise up from those ashes, and we're able to heal from that, I feel like it's almost, for me personally, I felt like it was almost my job to help others heal, to
Mhm.
show them a way, to give them kind of a cliff notes, so to speak, um, in my book.
Mhm.
Because the way my book is set up, the first part of the book is about the trauma. And the second part of the book is about how I got through it
Mhm.
and the revelations I had as I was healing. So anyone, it doesn't have to be law enforcement, but anyone can glean something from it, you know?
Can you let the listeners know where they can find you and where they can find the book?
Sure, absolutely. So my book is on Amazon currently. Um, the book is called The Other Side of the Gun: My Journey from Trauma to Resiliency. It is in paperback form and Kindle form. So if you're in Kindle Unlimited, you can actually read my book for free. Please review it if you buy it and read it. I'm always so grateful for all of my reviews, good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't matter. And then if you want to contact me or if you want more information on my speaking, or even my book is on my website as well. My website is susansnowspeaks.com.
And for the listeners, all of that will be in the show notes. So it's easily clickable so that you can get to this amazing woman and her story and how her book can give you the tools to, come back into that repair, come back home, come back into that body and, be on the journey of the process of living and being alive. So I want to thank you for the alchemy that you have done in your own life. You've taken those impurities and you've transformed them into gold, and you're offering that gold to others. And I want to thank Tom for being here in the space to just ignite the relatability in the story and allowing the feelings and the storytelling to really, vibrate out to the person that really needs to see themselves in this story. Are you willing to share what the intention was when we did the meditation at the beginning?
Yeah. My meditation intention was that somebody out there that was listening to my voice, who felt that they had no hope, that they were afraid to do the work, that they would listen to me and feel a peace and a calm and to be able to move towards their healing, knowing that they were going to be okay in the end. So that was my intention.
And Tom made sure that that intention was supported all the way through this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's an honor to have had you as a guest on here. And, you know, it's an honor to be in your presence and share the energy. You created a teaching for me and a validation of the work that I do. And, you know, standing amongst another person that is holding that same sacred space for other people to come back to their journey back home. So thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
Remember to be kind to yourself.
I will.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit. It's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under LiftOneSelf. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, LiftOneSelf.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.